On behalf of your host, Steve D, this is Bruce Buffer saying thank you for tuning in to Xtreme Lyfe. And now, this is the moment Xtreme Lyfe fans around the world have been waiting for. It's time!
Hey everybody, this is Steve D. I am here with Levi Steedman. This is Xtreme Lyfe Media. She has been gracious enough to come and talk with me today, and has really just a pretty awesome career going right now. And I think you have a six win. You're on a 4-win streak right now. Coming out of your amateur career, just turned pro. You fought for 3 different promotions that I could see. There may be more, I don't know, but that's just kind of what I found. And you're, like I said, you had some pretty amazing. I mean, you were on I would say you were fighting almost once a month for a period of time there.
Pretty much, yeah. It kind of ended up, I was like having a fight and then basically like training for 2 weeks pretty much, or 3 weeks, and then back into another fight after that. So that's how I prefer it anyway. I don't want to, to stay stagnant. I like to be in that fighting mindset all the time, which probably isn't good, but it's the way I like doing it anyway.
That's what I was going to say, because I know I've talked to a lot of fighters. I know a lot of fighters, and a lot of times there's at least 3 or 4 months off in between fights. Sometimes some people only fight like twice a year. I mean, and you were on like a breakneck pace. I mean, you were doing and it seems to work for you because you won all 4 of those last 4 fights, and they were like, 1 month apart almost to the letter. You had some impressive victories there. I mean, you fought Christina Yates. That was a 1-round fight where you came out on top of that one, which was pretty. You have this flurry of punches. Seems to be the way you're ending a lot of fights right now.
Yeah, that one was quite fun actually because I've never really had, I can't remember what fight that was out of the 10 fights I've had, but I've never really had anyone like try and annoy me before a fight or try and say that they're going to beat me and like have a bit of like this shit talk, but she did. And I was like, this is like a totally new experience. And then I've said in a different interview that I was in the back warming up and I was like pacing up and down, like getting really annoyed with myself, thinking that she said that she's going to knock me out. And then, so when I came out, I just kind of attacked her, and that's where that flurry of like I took her down and just beat her up on the floor because she kind of got me really riled up for that fight.
You were pissed, right? You came in.
It really was.
There's pros and cons to I think out of talking to a lot of people, there's pros and cons to the shit talk game, right? When you get into that, sure, you want to get inside the other person's head, you want to intimidate them. The whole goal of that is to throw you off, right? That was the goal. Throw you off so you come in a little bit intimidated, maybe you're a little timid, you're a little cautious, and she has some room to work and knock you out, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the goal. Sometimes, like in that case, that backfires, right? So it really kind of backfired. It just kind of lit a fuse in you, and you said, "No, this is not happening. Hell with this. I'm going in, and I'm gonna knock you out." And
it kind of reminded me of when Namajunas fought young Jacek the first time, and when she was really up in her face and trying to like get her riled up or try and like make her feel uncomfortable. But that's how I approached it, the same way as Namajunas. So I was like, we're going to have to fight each other anyway. So you may wait and fight each other and then, see what happens from there instead of trying to do it outside. But, I'm happy. Like I've said this before, but the way we are in our gym, should I say, is we're not really bothered about shit talk. Like we prefer to just fight and get it over with. But like I say, I didn't react on social media, but I'm partial to it as well. Like I think there's a funny side of it and it's quite entertaining, but I would much prefer to, do the talking in the cage, as they say.
Yeah, let the fighting speak for itself, right? You don't need to say. Sometimes not saying anything is the most I think sometimes that could be the most intimidating thing you could do. Someone else is talking all this shit and you're just kind of like, okay, all right, whatever. Let's see what happens.
that's where like I've got this thing that I do now when I walk out to the cage. It's like I barely keep my t-shirt on before I get there. So because in that fight I was so like pumped and I wanted to get in the cage, I just like tore my t-shirt off before I got to the cage, you know, before like the cornermen like take your t-shirt off and put the grease on. I just kind of like tore my top off and I was so angry, and like now I just do that all the time. So like as soon as I walk out, I'm like, I've tore it off and I've walked all the way down. And it just seems to be like something that I do now, because on my last fight, the one that I won by the body kick.
Yep. That was second round. Charlie Burke, right? Was that?
And no, that was my last one, but the one before that I won by body kick with Jenny.
Okay, Jenny Line.
Yeah, I think that was third round. I think.
Yeah, third round, 7 seconds into the third round, which was pretty intense. I mean, you don't see that happen often either. A body kick end a fight. Because I'm a southpaw, like I do drill that kick quite often. Obviously, open side kicks. Yeah.
And I do have like quite a hard kick, so I just kind of trying to let them off a little bit more. So yeah, like as I was saying from that fight, I wasn't going to do the whole t-shirt thing. Like my coach said, you know, just enjoy the walk out to your music, enjoy it. But then he looked through there was like a little window where we was walking out from, and she looked quite like nervous, and he was like, no, fuck it, just do it, just run out and take the top off. So it did, and it just seems to, I don't know, it just caught on from there. So it's quite a funny thing. So when you see like my next fights, hopefully my pro fights, I'll probably be doing the same thing.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it because, you know, I actually just interviewed, I've been interviewing a lot of up and coming fighters lately, which is, you know, I love doing that because, you know, it's actually better than, you know, people who've been around a long time because, you know, you guys are kind of coming up, you're hungry, you're going to be the future stars of the sport. There's no doubt about it. You know, and you know, it's kind of one of those things where you got to be able to read what's going on, right? Like your coach did, like said, hey, she looks a little nervous, so go out there and intimidate the crap out of her, right? Go out there and walk in and just go in strong. And it worked for you. I mean, you know, whatever you're doing right now is working. I wouldn't change anything. I mean, you know, the only thing I would ask is because you were on such a momentous roll and then you turned pro and then COVID-19 happened. So it's kind of like, do you think that's going to throw you off, or is that going to help you, or, you know, because you like to have a fast pace. I could tell just by talking to you, and yeah.
I took it as like almost like a blessing in disguise a little bit, because it's just something that I can, you know, it's going around. Obviously, there's nothing we can do about it, but I like the fact that it's given me more time to train now, because I think when I started, I lost the 2 on the bounce to split decision. And I think that was more because I haven't let my body rest. I've not let my mind rest as well, because I think having, you know, maybe some months off is good because you can level up as a fighter. And I think you notice that after like my last loss, and then obviously I'm on the 4-fight win streak, I just kind of figured out what was working for me and figured out how to recover and everything like that. So what COVID basically has done is made me like reset and really work on things that I wanted to work on. Like one of them was my cardio, which I've mentioned before. I wanted to, because I try to like finish fights, I don't really worry about the next round, or I don't worry about the 3rd round or whatever. So I wanted to work on that just in case it went, you know, into the later rounds, and that's what I've been working on. And just working on little things, so trying to build my IQ. So I've my fighting IQ, should I say. Yeah. And I feel like that's definitely happened, like now in sparring, and I'm thinking about things more because I've had a lot of time to do that, and, you know, research fights and figure out what, you know, what's best for me, and obviously like do things like this, you know, do little interviews and kind of get myself out there and speak to different people. Just try to be proactive, because there's no point, you know, I'd hate to be that person who's not been in the gym for the last, you know, 5 months because of COVID, and now they're catching up. I want to be able to, you know, fight this year, hopefully. So and it's just getting used to obviously pro rules. Like in the gym, we do that anyway. Like we're always aware of elbows and knees, but now I can kind of work on that and build myself up to those 5-minute rounds, because obviously it was 3-minute before. And now, you know.
Now you're going to be going up a bit.
Level, yeah.
Yeah, you could potentially be fighting 5-minute rounds. I mean, potentially at some point.
It's definitely eventually, if you get a main event or you get it could even be a British title. It's still 5 rounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to get prepared for that as well.
That's 25 minutes. I mean, 25 minutes is a lot of time to be, people don't realize it, even, and I always, because I hear a lot of people sometimes, I hear it behind me, stand them up, do this, do that, when you're at a fight, all this kind of craziness. And, I hear people behind me, well, if I was in there, I was like, if you were in there, you'd be getting your ass kicked. There's no doubt about it. I mean, here's the thing. You don't realize how hard it is until you get in there. And then you spar. If you're somebody who even spars, that 5-minute period of time, you think 5 minutes, that's nothing, right? Well, if you're in the ring getting punched in the face or punching somebody in the face, trying to keep up with that other person who's got you, who's changing levels, who's moving around, who's hitting you with side kicks, nailing you with teeps, and you're constantly trying to figure out a way inside, you need a hell of a lot of cardio for that. Now think about that. So that's just 5 minutes. Now repeat that 3 to 5 times.
It's a long time to be doing anything, that explosive and that high pace. And it's a funny one because a lot of people say like, oh, how are you preparing, your conditioning wise for these rounds and these. I don't think there's any other way other than actually sparring to get used to fighting that round, because like say you could go on a bike for an hour, or you could do sledge runs and stuff like that, and yeah, it kind of mimics the fatigue, but the adrenaline dump and everything that you have is totally different. And people don't understand how hard it actually is to do that. Like my brother, last year before he hurt his knee, he actually joined my gym and he was doing jiu-jitsu, and he got to a point where he was rolling and he's got a good idea of jiu-jitsu, and he was saying, he was like, that is the hardest thing like that I've ever done, is doing a few 5-minute rounds of rolling, like physically trying to control someone and sub them is like the hardest thing. And I was like, now you know why I'm tired all the time. Like, I'm not just saying it, it's the hardest sport pretty much in the world, I think, anyway, is MMA.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like, because you can hide in other things, right? Like you can go, let's just say you're going to go on a bike ride, or you're going to get cardio in, but you could always dial down the pace. You could do things to kind of make yourself, when you're sparring, someone else could be determining what your pace needs to be, right? Yeah. So, that, in itself, plus you're moving in a whole bunch of different ways, right? You could be standing, you could be on the ground. And I agree with your brother. Ground fighting, even though I love jiu-jitsu, that's one of my favorite things in the world. I try to do, right now it's hard to get anything done in that world because, social distancing. But I always say jiu-jitsu is the opposite of social distancing. It's really, you're doing
like sweating in each other's mouths, and it's like the worst, it's the worst thing to think about social distancing. But it's super hard. Like, just getting yourself back up off the floor with resistance as well, like wrestling. Wrestling's probably one of the hardest aspects of the sport, including jiu-jitsu. But someone else wants to keep you on the floor, and then you're trying to get up is a pretty hard task to do. But it's like, I hate when people don't appreciate that. If they're not very educated in MMA and they're watching people wrestle in a fight and they're like, oh, I prefer the kickboxing, and I'm just like, you just don't understand what's going on right now. Like, this is such a high level, grappling match. Like when people watch Khabib versus Conor and they're like, oh, he's just lay there. He's not, there's loads of different things going on, but I'd love to just go out and, educate everybody on that. I wish everybody knew and could appreciate it.
Yeah, before all this, I would go to a lot of events, and I still, like I said, I'm trying to find my way back in because, it's right now, there's really nothing with any audiences or anything. Even press passes are like extremely hard to get. Just because they're trying to keep it very limited to how many people are actually there in the few events that are actually still happening. And what used to drive me crazy is hearing people, stand them up, stand them up. I'm like, you don't understand what's happening right now. What's happening? Yeah, you may not. I think the reason you're not finding it exciting is because you don't know what's going on. He's trying to get him in a guillotine. He's trying to stay out of it, or whatever. There's all kinds of high level stuff going on, and they just don't get it. Everybody wants to see people stand up and knock somebody out. That's what they want to see, and
I always say go and watch boxing then. Yeah. Like if that's all you want to see, just watch the boxing, because that's the whole
kickboxing.
It's all that together. So I do like those arguments. I remember being at one of the shows called Cage Warriors in the UK, and there was a guy sat behind me, like one of my teammates was fighting, and he had the guy on the floor, and he was getting an armbar, and then the guy behind me was talking to his girlfriend saying, "Oh, I don't think he's going to win this because he's on the floor." And I was like listening, thinking, what? And then I turned around and said, "Which guy are you talking about?" And he was like, "Oh, that one." I went, "He's got him in an armbar. Like, how is he going to lose this fight?"
He's got him in a triangle, or I mean,
I was thinking, what is going on? And then, but I think he probably just wanted to sound like he knew what he was talking about to his girlfriend. But I couldn't help myself. I just turned around and was like, "No, you don't know what you're talking about. It's okay though." But so he did win. But yeah, it's quite a funny little thing, isn't it, when people don't really know what they're looking at?
Yeah, it drives me crazy. Sounds like you're a lot like me in that, because you like I sometimes I have to turn around and say something. Same thing. I'm just like, well, let me educate you on what's actually happening here, because just because he's on top right now doesn't mean he's winning.
Yeah.
In a
triangle or something, he's like, yeah, he's definitely not winning now.
I mean, I could choke someone out from my back. I mean, that's just, I mean, I know a lot of, I mean, if you're a high level, guy, and I'm not saying I am, I'm just saying that, there's a lot of very high level people out there, all of a sudden they got somebody and they're passed out on top of them. I've seen that happen a lot.
Yeah, but isn't it? MMA is such a weird game where it's like you don't know what could happen, and you can choke someone off your back, which is amazing, which is really good for anyone on the back anyway.
Yeah, I mean, anything could happen to anyone. I always say anybody could get lucky with a punch and a kick and knock somebody out. I mean, you could have the biggest underdog walk in, and we've seen that happen a few times in the last year. The big underdogs come in and they, just get, and I'm not saying they got lucky. They were just better that day, right? I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody. I mean, that you win a fight, you're just better that day. And that's anybody. I mean, it could be, Conor McGregor versus somebody who's, not very well known. And that person just is having a really good day and he's not.
Stranger things have happened, haven't they? That's why it's such a good sport, I think. It's like, and it's so hard to bet on half the time. Like, I do like a bet now and then on the MMA, but it's super hard to bet on because you just don't know what's going to happen. You really don't, do you? Like, when Stipe fought DC, was it the first time and he got that punch in the clinch? It's like, when does that ever happen? Like, it's very rare that stuff like that happens, and I lost money on that, but it's like, so I stopped betting on heavyweight fights, because with them you really don't know what's going to happen, especially with the fists are like this big. You just never know. So
one shot changes everything.
Something that I do want to get in, like my pro career, is submission wins, because I've kind of really like kept it standing, so far, and I think not many people know I can do jiu-jitsu. So I've been a blue belt for a while, and that is something like what I put on like my list for this year, like turn pro, get a submission, win in a fight. And then I was like, right, COVID, that's just like
COVID came in and slowed everything down for everybody. But I think you have to take a positive attitude with it. I think you have a great positive attitude with it. I mean, take the opportunity to train. I was just talking last week with Diana Caravas, who also just turned pro last year. She's bantamweight division, and she same thing. I mean, she's looking for a fight. Her last couple fights have been canceled because of all this stuff, and it's like, I feel bad for fighters, because fighters fight. That's what they want to do, but in this time right now, you got to kind of slow everything down, and you got to kind of say, okay, now I could take the opportunity. If my stand-up game is not that great, I got to fix that. If my ground game isn't that great, if I leave myself open in certain areas, this is a good opportunity to fix that stuff with your partners and your trainers. I think we need to kind of just take that opportunity right now. And if you're, if you're a smart fighter, that's what you're doing right now. You're taking that opportunity to take a break for a second. And you're right. That Stipe, DC trilogy, probably one of my favorite trilogies, next to the Randy Couture trilogy with, damn it, why can't I think? Randy Couture and anyway, I don't know. My brain is fried.
Yeah, mine too. I normally would know, but I'm like, trying to think. Yeah.
Chuck Liddell. I don't know why I couldn't come up with Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell, but yeah, that's a great trilogy too, in my opinion. In that same division. So, it's just. It's a really cool time in MMA right now. So what got you into MMA? Because that's always a question I always ask, because it's really important, because it's not Everybody has a different road.
It's quite a funny one. So, because I grew up with two brothers my whole life, so I've always been like, in the middle of like little fights with them and scrapping and all this different thing at home, and just being that kind of little aggressive girl type thing. I've always done like sports, and then I got to a point where obviously I left school and I was doing whatever I was doing. I got a job and I started getting not fat, but I just got a little bit chubby and a little bit like complacent, and I've never done that because I've always ever done sport. So I was like, right, I need to go and get a personal trainer. But at this time I was watching MMA, like EFC as well, the South African promotion, like on my TV. I always used to watch boxing. And so I went on the website of this gym and I seen there was a PT called Liana who was an amateur MMA fighter at the time, and she was like basing her fitness stuff off like boxing and kickboxing. So I was like, I'm going to do that because that interested me more than, going lifting weights. Like I didn't want to do that. So I ended up, joining up with Liana, and then we got on the boxing side of it, and she was like, you're actually really good. Like you should join a gym. So at this point, I didn't know that SBG Manchester was a thing. So when the Tough, with Saul Rogers, so when Conor McGregor was the coach on there, on the Tough, I think it was a good few years ago now.
Yeah.
I noticed that Saul Rogers trained out of SBG Manchester. So the first thing I did was Google it, and then a message saying, could I have a free trial? And then pretty much turned up, I think it was in the December time, and then it shut for Christmas. So I had my trial class, I think was December 2015 somewhat, and then joined, full time from there pretty much. So like 5 years later, I'm still, at the gym, and that's how it started basically. Because at first, I did want to try and fight. Like I was, like I said, I've always grew up like even having, daft little fights in the street, like as a kid, and cause you think that you're the hardest on the on the estate. But then, once I got into it and realized that I do have potential to fight, then the actual like idea of fighting came into it, and then I was, training to fight from then onwards. And then I think it was like 18 months to a year to 2 years later, that's when I had my first fight as an amateur. That's
awesome. And what do you love the most about fighting? It's definitely takes a certain person to get in there, and I always say, if you want to humble yourself, get punched in your face a few times. That'll humble you pretty quick. But
you have to be a certain type of person mentally as well. Like not that you have to be a weirdo, nothing like that, but I think there is a slight element to it. Like there's something going wrong in your head somewhere. Like
got to be a little off, right? Got to be a little off somewhere.
I think there's definitely something, because who wants to go out every day and do like a really tough sport where you're getting punched in the face, you're possibly going to get knocked out, especially for girls. Like you could be scarred, you could break your nose, you can do, lose teeth, all these different things. But I think it's just the actual glory. Like there's something about it that I don't think is anything that can top winning a fight, because I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I grew up on a place where like, people have to defend themselves. It's not the nicest area in the world. And you kind of having that, that person there can fight is kind of like a badge of honor type of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think just being tough, like, I think that's all I've wanted to be, is just tough, because obviously I've got two older brothers, and like, I always looked up to them, like them being tough and they can handle themselves. And, if I ever like, if any boys were trying to like bully me when I was younger, like my brothers always used to get involved. I used to think, I wish I was that tough, that people would be not scared of me, because that sounds like I'm being a dick, but people knowing that you can defend yourself in a good way, like you're a good person, but you can defend yourself. I think that's like the best, the best person that you can be. But one of the definite things is just the glory of it. Like I remember winning my first fight, and then people just thinking it was just like this best thing, and it's like nothing can top it. But at the same time, it's like one of those addictive feelings, because I was saying to my brother the other day, we went out for food, and he was talking about obviously winning and the feeling, and I said, but it's one of them things that you've constantly got to chase again, because you win, and it's like such an anticlimax at the same time, because you've built up, you're having this fight, I'm going through the motions, and then it's fight day, and then you're in the back, and then you win, and then it all just drops back down again. You're like, well, great, now I've got to do it again.
Yeah, we call that adrenaline dumping in the because I come from a competitive background, not so much fighting, but CrossFit and a few other things, and when the game day's over, the adrenaline drops and you're like, oh, you almost get depressed. And then
I actually said this, it's like it's a form of like depression after it, because you kind of like, oh, that was it, but now I've got to do it again. And then it's annoying because you've exerted all of that energy into getting that win, and then you've got to run after it again. It's like almost, you know, it's this mad addiction, but it's
like a drug.
It really is. But I like it, and that's what I do basically. I always say to my mum, I was like, you should be proud of me because I don't do anything else. It's like, I don't go, you know, I don't take drugs, I don't go, you know, get in trouble with the police or whatever. Like, I just go to the gym, fight, and then, you know, watch Netflix. So it's not really.
What's your favorite show on Netflix right now? Since you brought that up.
I watch more movies than anything, like thrillers. I don't really have time for series. I can't give myself, you know, I can't like commit.
You don't do the binge watch thing?
Yeah, like I just can't do it. Like I've done it before, obviously with Dexter. That was one of my favorite series. It was Dexter, but again, that was like, I've never found anything that's just, you know, as good as Dexter. So I've just sacked the series off and just a movie
every once in a while. But you brought up some really cool stuff.
One of them was really good recently. I think it was Zodiac.
Oh, okay. Yeah. With
that was a really good film that I've watched recently. So that's the type of stuff I like.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool, you know, there's just so much stuff that is out there. I forget what it was, but it's so many millions of hours of film and video. And I mean, you could literally, just lock yourself in your house. And watch movies all day for the rest of your life, probably. But it's not healthy. I don't recommend anybody ever do that. I would lose my mind because I'm a very active person. I have to keep moving. Just keeps my mental state good, you know. So, but you know, you brought up a really cool thing, and you said that, you know, about being a fighter, and you know, you want to be able to take care of yourself, but you don't want to be, you know, most fighters I know and people I know are very humble, right? Even more humble than people who are not fighters generally, because, you know something that other people don't, right? You already know, I could take care of myself. I'm good in most situations. You know, for the most part, you know, there's a certain level of confidence that comes from that. Cause I think a lot of people who act like a bit of an ass or egotistical are very self-conscious. They're very, they don't have self-confidence. They don't actually have that. So they kind of put that out as like, I need you to know I'm confident, you know, and it comes across very badly, and fighters don't need to do that. Yeah,
that's exactly it. And I think, you know, it's like this defense mechanism, isn't it? Like people, you know, if they're not very confident or they're not very skilled, they'll try and like, you know, push it out there and look really big and tough. But, you know, that's like the complete opposite of what, you know, like martial artists do. Like that's what it is. That's what I was saying before, is like not so much being an ego, like I can defend myself. It's more like, you know, I've got that in the background. I can tolerate someone, you know, having an argument with me and thinking that they could beat me up, and I just go, I'm not bothered. Like, I don't care, because that's, you know, I'm not involved in that, you know, fighting in the street or whatever. That's, you know, that's up to you. But just knowing that you can, you know, diffuse a situation like that is so good. And I was saying to my mum, I think it was yesterday or this morning, I can't remember, but it's like, I was saying that I wish, you know, some martial arts, like especially for women, was like free, so they can learn how to defend themselves. Because not that, you know, I'm like this huge feminist or anything. I just want girls to be able to defend themselves, because especially this day and age, there's so many crazy things that's going on. That
a lot of creeps out there, and you know, it's just you have to,
It's crazy. Like, I think, I'm not sure if it was New York, but it was on the subway. Did a guy attack a woman and nobody done anything in like broad daylight? And then I was thinking, this is just such a crazy world. Like, years ago, all the guys would have, you know, jumped in and dragged this guy off, but it's like
thrown him at the front of the train, you know. But now it's, you know, it's gotten to. I mean, New York's just crazy right now. I live about 40 minutes from New York, and you know, I haven't been there since this whole thing, because the crime rate is just phenomenal. I mean, it's just you know, I have no reason to go there at this point as far as the city goes. I've been to the state. You know, New York State a few times, just because that's a lot of fighters out there. A lot of people I know are out that way. But yeah, definitely the city I'm staying away from right now. Just because it's a shit show. It's a complete shit show there. You know, and it's a shame, because it was kind of finally in a really good place. And after many years, and now it's kind of like it was back in the 70s and early 80s, where it was just rampant with crime and criminal behavior, and there's a lot going on. I mean, and that's a whole other conversation, probably.
Like going back to it, it's like it's got to a point now. And even everywhere. It's not just it's not just New York. It's not just the US. It's all over the world. Like you see, there's so much crime and there's so many not just women getting attacked, men as well. And if everybody knew how to defend themselves, or they knew this respect that you get from training like martial art, I don't think there would be as much crime. I think it's just these arrogant like dickheads that want to attack people because they're preying on the weak people. And that's why I did a self-defense class obviously before lockdown, because of like social distancing and stuff. I was doing a female self-defense class, and I loved doing that, and the girls loved it, because it's not just the fact that they can I always said to them, I'm not teaching you how to fight a man, because that's just ridiculous. It's the diffusing of the situation and also getting away from the situation, and then last resort type of things. Like I hate when you see it. I don't know if you see on your Facebook, but I get like advertisements like, and you see a woman like palm striking a guy in the face, and it's like, learn how to defend yourself. And you think that guy's like 6'5".
Yeah.
And he would just beat her ass. Like that's not. You're not going to sit there and have a fight with this guy. You're going to run away. That's the best thing to do. But yeah, like that's one of the things that I'm quite passionate about is like spreading the knowledge onto other people and children as well. So,
and that's awesome.
We get back onto actually being able to coach people, because it's a matter of life or death for some people. Like especially people with mental illnesses like depression and stuff. It's a massissive thing is going to the gym. So hopefully, fingers crossed everyone can get back to it at some point.
And that's one thing we see is, while we're all like in this isolative state and we're dealing with all this stuff, we know that suicide rates are going up. We know depression and mental health rates are going up. We know that anti-anxiety medications and antidepressant medications are being prescribed at 86% more than they were last year at this point. Which is, it just means that people are having a lot of problems with what's going on. And even that, this is even healthy people, even people without mental health issues are developing mental health issues over this. And, you're absolutely right. And I commend you because I think, everybody should learn at least some basic self-defense. And it's so important, especially for females growing up in today's day and age, where you got a lot of people who are just, there's very good people out there and there's some very bad people out there. So, and you get yourself, I think it should be a requirement for college students. It should be a requirement, especially jujitsu. Learn how to get somebody, some guy gets fresh with you, learn how to get him in an arm bar. See how quick that shit ends.
Even chokes, like I've messed around and people have said to me before, like my friends and stuff have gone like, oh, what would you do if somebody like tried to have a fight with you if you went out for a drink or whatever? And I'd be like, well, obviously you'd want to restrain them, but I wouldn't punch them. If I had to, I'd choke them. Like that's like
choke them out.
Yeah, like I think that's like the best and the nicest way to to end, not end them altogether, but like to subdue them, because you see a lot of people and it's quite bad. Like, they've ended up in this fight, or they've, someone's hit them and they've hit them back, and then that person sadly died. And you think, I'd rather avoid that, that one punch type of death. I'd rather just, strangle someone or pin them down. That's, what
I just love the way you say it. It's the nicest way to do it. It's just to strangle them. That's great.
People always think that as well. Like when they look at me and then I start talking about MMA and they're like, this girl, but no, I think it is just a great way of doing it, without hurting someone.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, generally you just pass out and you wake up again in a few seconds, but
what's happened?
Yeah. I mean, and you're right. I mean, you could hit somebody and hurt them seriously, and that could be life-changing for you and that person. So it's, it's one of those things. So what is your biggest inspiration to keep fighting? What is your...
I think it's not just like, when people have asked me this and they expect me to say like, female MMA fighters and stuff like that, but it's not really that. Like I want to be an inspiration to people. Like I don't really have somebody who I necessarily look up to. Like I think it's like a broad range of people. But just being like, you know, that person that people look up to, like if it's kids, if it's women, you know, I get a lot of people, like after one of my fights, you know, I had a few girls message me and like they're interested in training, or they just wanted to like say how good I was, or, you know, that they like the performance or whatever. And that's just what I want to do, you know, continually. I want to be that person that, you know, people can go to, or, you know, come to train with, and just understand that, like, they don't have to be a certain type of person to actually go and train. That's what I want to put out there is, you know, like, I know a couple of people, like a couple of girls who are really girly girls, and I'm trying to get them in, you know, to train, and they don't want to do it because they think that they have to be like really muscly, or, you know, really tall or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, so that's my inspiration. Is, it sounds so cliche and weird, but like, my inspiration is to be an inspiration to other people. And
that's not weird at all, actually. That's actually quite honorable. I mean, you know, be an inspiration, which, you know, I think that comes from like the newest person in the room is the one that inspires you, right? The person who's learning for the first time. And in turn, you inspire them to keep going, right? So that's you know, that's a good thing.
That's it. And I think, like, I was talking to one of the person who owns our gym, and there's a guy who, when he first started, he was quite overweight. And this is why I say, like, MMA and sport, you know, martial arts in general is for everyone. He was quite overweight, and I seen him. We started to bring the gym back open now, socially distant drills, and he came in and he's lost so much weight from obviously the last year or so doing, you know, jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is what it should be about. Like, not just, you know, praising the fighters that we've got in the gym for representing the gym, but also this guy who's turned up every day. You know, he was probably the slowest guy at the start, but now he's lost, you know, like 50 pounds or something crazy like that. And it's great. And it just makes me really happy, that type of stuff, like coaching as well as, you know, training and fighting myself is like really important to me as well. You know, just for people to get, everybody goes to the gym for different reasons. Like, I might go to the gym to get better at, you know, fighting, but, you know, this guy gets better, you know, to get his cardio better. And like with the little kids as well, like there's loads of different things as to why they come. And the reason why it came on to like being an inspiration is because there's one little girl at the gym who wanted to wear my belt, one of the British titles that I got, wanted to wear my belt and take a picture, and she came in with her hair braided like I do for my fights. And I was like, the cutest thing I've ever seen. Like, and it's just, that's the type of thing that I want to do, is just spread it on to the next generation. Like you said earlier, you know, interviewing people like myself and other, you know, new fighters coming through. We've got to have them new people. We've got to have new people getting interested and carrying on, because, you know, it's not going to stop, you know, at the few fighters that are in the UFC and Bellator now. We've got to have new people coming in, so we've got to make it fun and enjoyable for everyone to
yeah, no offense to none of them, but they're getting old. You know, so you gotta make room.
It's totally true. Like, I think I watched one of the podcasts about, you know, Frankie Edgar's last fight, and we were saying, like, you know, what does he do if he doesn't win, and things like that. And it's true, like, Frankie Edgar is getting on a bit now, and we need that new Frankie Edgar. We need the new guy to come in and be the guy who can fight at all weight classes and all this. And I think that's where they need to start pushing, you know, not younger fighters in a bad way where like they're rushing through, but just kind of promote them a little bit more and get that interest in, because you can't, you know, follow the same fighters for the rest of your life. You've got to have these new guys that need a little push through as well. So yeah,
and that's so important, you know. And I'm going to say, you know, it's a, you know, I'm doing it. I'm trying to get, you know, people who are I'm trying to do a mix, right, of both, you know, I think even more so up and coming fighters right now, for a number of reasons. But, you know, I think, you know, you guys are the future of the sport. A lot of you guys are going to make it to different pro level promotions, and be working out of there. And, you know, I'm trying to follow your careers. I want to go from the beginning. I want to be able to say, you know, I'm going to ask you this in a few minutes about where do you see yourself in a few years from now? But, you know, one of the things I see a few years from now for me is I'm going to see a few of you guys, and hopefully all of you, get to a point where I'm going to be like, okay, now we're going to go back and we're going to do a play-by-play of your career and kind of chronicle that. Yeah. Because I think that's so cool, you know, to look at like, okay, you just turned pro now. Well, 5 years from now, when we sit down and talk again, you know, where are you going to be at that point? You know, so where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Let's go right into that.
I really like this question, because I love it when people get asked it, and then the first thing they do is they go, I'm going to be a UFC champion. And that's perfect. Like, that's great. You know, you can think that, and obviously it's great to have that mindset, but I just want to take the right paths and say the right things and do the right things. So like in the UK, me personally, I think that the best route to, obviously you get a couple of wins on like the regional shows, and then Cage Warriors is that best that best promotion that you want to get on. And I've followed Cage Warriors for you know, a number of years now, and it's like a filter company to like the UFC pretty much. So I think is it 97 or 96 champions from Cage Warriors have gone through to the UFC, and that's the route that I want to take. I don't want to just have like, you know, and I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to beat about the bush. It's a lot easier for girls to go to UFC. That's just, it's true. Like, you know, if you get like a 4-fight win streak and you're finishing, you probably will end up in the UFC. But okay. I want to earn that. Like, you know, that can happen, you know, especially if they need somebody in the, you know, the flyweight division or, you know, strawweight.
You just got to be ready to take a fight on the fly. You got to be able to say, okay, someone had to cancel, especially now with people testing positive for COVID, things like that. You got to be on their number list and on their radar and be able to say, okay, this one just won a bunch of fights. And she could be ready. You know, I've seen people win fights that way too. It's really interesting. I keep bringing up James Gonzalez, who won a featherweight title not that long ago. Took a fight on 6 days notice, dropped 16-pound weight cut, and then got the win with one of the most brutal arm bars I've ever seen in my life. But you know, that stuff happens. It happens all the time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So like, obviously being ready as well is a massive thing, but also like I was saying, you go through. So I wanted obviously get a few wins. You know, so this is what I want to do anyway. Not necessarily what's going to happen, but get signed to Cage Warriors and create that flyweight division again in Cage Warriors and win the belt. Because what happens, I think, especially with female MMA, is there's not really that much going on, and you kind of got to create that. What that need for the division again, because I think with Cage Warriors, they fly people in, you know, from Europe and all around the country. And at the moment, Molly McCann, who's in the UFC now, had the flyweight title, but obviously she had to relinquish it because she went to the UFC. So the belt's just lying there somewhere, you know, and I want to create that division again. I want to earn myself, you know, that spot on the Cage Warriors, and then eventually, you know, I want to take my time, and then obviously if the UFC want me from there, you know, once I make my way through Cage Warriors, then that's, you know, that's exactly what I want. I don't want to straight away go, I'm going to the UFC. I want to prove, you know, that's where I want to be eventually. That's where everybody wants to be eventually.
And that sounds absolutely possible, and it sounds absolutely like a great plan. I mean, you don't want to, you know, and it seems like a lot of people really, you know, a lot of fighters I've been talking to lately really got their head on straight too with the plan. It's not like, you know, okay, I'm ready, I want to just go to the UFC. You know, I think, you know, because you go through levels in this thing. There are levels in this game, right? Yeah. And you got to learn in each level, right? So you have to spend some time in amateur. Then you have to spend some time as a pro. And then, you know, pro and in UFC, there's a step there too. Because, I mean, I've seen many athletes go into pro and then go to UFC. And if they're there too early, they get woken up real fast where, you know, and say, whoa, this level's just a different level altogether. I mean, we've seen that happen a couple times in the last few years where, you know, maybe people got there just a little too soon and didn't spend enough time working on their game at a professional level in another promotion, and ended up at the UFC, and then, you know, ended up, you know, having a tough time. So, you know, I think that's definitely, taking that approach is great.
I think we're in a, like, especially younger fighters now, I think we're in a really good position, you know, to work out the best way to, you know, be a pro fighter. Because I think I've heard this before, like a lot of people were saying that back in the day, there wasn't necessarily amateur rankings. It was like you kind of had a few like fights and you ended up in the pro division, and you know, next winter in the UFC. And like the whole like talent now is, I think, is a lot higher, you know, coming through at the lower ranks, because we've got that amateur career. We can watch, you know, other fights, and we can kind of study loads. We've got UFC Fight Pass that I pay for stupidly all the time. And, you know, we can.
You're not the only one, trust me.
I don't even know why I pay for it anymore, but I still do. But, you know, watching fights and just studying everything from day one. And I think we've got that upper hand. So use it, you know, instead of rushing. That's exactly what my problem, you know, my point is, don't rush, because half the time, I think quite a lot of the UFC champions are like in the 30s, are they not? Like, I think there's a couple in the 20s, but you know, they're still higher up, you know, they're not like 22, you know, people going to see really young and think, you know, that's really good, but I don't think it's necessarily that good, you know, going in really young, you know, you need to build that experience up and then, you know, wise up from there. And then obviously, so that's my approach on it anyways. I'm not rushing. I just want to take it. You know,
take your time. You know, here's the thing. Years from now, you're going to look back and you're going to say, did I enjoy the journey? You know, that's the important piece right now. It's not the destination. You're going to get where you need to be eventually. It's just enjoy the journey you're on right now, right? Enjoy each promotion you're working with it, you know, and then when you get there, which I think you will. You know, I think there's no doubt that you will get there at some point, but it's, you know, you just got to make sure you take the right steps, get prepared correctly, and do the right things. I mean, I heard an interesting nickname for you the other day, the Sniper Ghost.
That was really funny, because it was a promotion, which is quite a small promotion in the UK, and it's in like this random town called Morecambe, which is like the weirdest. It's like a nuke town. It's just so weird. And the commentators were saying that I lost that fight by split decision, but if you watch it, I definitely didn't lose. So I'm not really bothered about that. But yeah, there was. I remember watching the commentary back, because I like to just see what they say sometimes, you know, whether they're on my side or not. I just like it, like, if it's quite interesting. And they were saying like, oh, she's so elusive and Sniper Ghost, and I was like, Sniper Ghost. I thought like it was the funnious thing. It just really made me laugh. Like,
well, it's actually kind of cool. I mean, it gives you kind of an interesting, mystical kind of, you know, like you're just going to come in and hit people and disappear and then hit them again and just, you know, whatever the heck that means. But, you know, it's pretty cool. I wanted to ask about it because when I heard it, I was like, that's interesting. Because I don't think.
Like a poster shared, wasn't it? Because I think it was a few years ago, that fight, and I put it on the.
Yeah, I think I was kind of, as I was preparing for this, I was kind of reading up and going through whatever I could to kind of get prepared for the interview today. And I saw that. I was like, I got to ask about that. I absolutely have to ask about it.
It didn't catch on, by the way.
Didn't catch on? Well, maybe we'll make it catch on. Let's see. Introducing out of the blue corner. Anyway. You know, but no, I think, you know, it was definitely something it caught my eye. I thought it was pretty cool. You know, cause I mean, I noticed that you didn't really have a nickname currently.
No.
But I mean, you'll get one eventually. I mean, that, you know, like I said, I think everybody kind of develops something at some point, down the road. So you brought up your family a little bit. What do they think about you being a professional fighter?
So like my brothers and my dad love it. Like they think it's, you know, the best thing, and they come to my fights. But my mum, not that she hates it, but she absolutely hates me like getting hurt or looking like I'm going to get hurt. And she just, I think it's just because it's that motherly instinct. She doesn't want me to go and have a fight, but she's very supportive. But she's absolutely terrified. Like she won't come to a fight.
She won't watch.
She came to the last fight, so the fight that I lost by unanimous decision against Dakota, which you may have seen, I'm not too sure. That one was a little bit of like it was quite a tough fight. So I did, you know, I got a black eye and, you know, bruises and all things like that. And I think that just like completely put her off the whole thing, because she could see I was like, in all my other fights, I've not been physically hurt. Like I've not really had any like, you know, cuts or any bruising really. But that fight I did, so it kind of put her off, and she didn't want to see that again. But everyone else really likes it. Like my nana as well, she absolutely loves it. She's been watching Bellator. She tells me when Bellator's on now. So like she'll phone me, she's 76, and she'll phone me and go, Bellator's on in 10 minutes. And I'm like, I didn't even know that. But and then I go and put, you know, and she'll talk to me about MMA. So everyone seems to really like it, other than, you know, my mum's a little bit.
Well, I think moms don't want to see their kids get hurt. You know, dads are a little more like, they'll be all right. They'll just a couple bruises and smacks, you know, whatever.
I can't wait for my pro fight, because he knows I can elbow, and he's like, yeah, you know, we're going to have blood and all this. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to too. But, you know, we try not to mention that in front of my mum, because she, you know.
Well, yeah, because, you know, so could the other person. So.
It's funny because people go, oh, yeah, you can elbow now. I'm like, yeah, but they can elbow me in the face.
Yeah. Yeah, and elbows will cut you. That's the thing about the elbows. That's you know, I mean, I just had this conversation with somebody the other day. We don't wear gloves. You know, when you fight, you're not wearing 4-ounce gloves to protect the other person. You're wearing the gloves to protect your hands.
Yeah.
Broken. I mean, because really the gloves don't do a whole lot. You're getting a little bit of cushion, but you're still going to you're just not going to get cut up, right?
Yeah.
But the elbows, when they nail you, you see some serious, especially when you get into a clinch and someone's got a really good Muay Thai game and they start throwing elbows and knees at you. That gets really, it gets rough.
It changes the whole fight, doesn't it? Like, elbows can slit you open straight away, and then that's it. Blood's in the face, and
then the ref calls it. I mean, if it gets too deep, the ref just says, "Hey, you can't fight," and that's it. Yeah. Done deal. You lost. That's how sometimes people's record gets screwed up.
That's it. That's how it happens to Nate Diaz, doesn't it? He's got that much scar tissue now that he can barely go through the first round without being bloody. So
yeah, I think they just expect that from him at this point because because when you have that much heart, I mean, when you get scarred up like that, it's just the scarring breaks away the fresh skin on the other side, and you just get cut. I mean, that's just the way. Where he gets it from the gloves, he didn't even get it from elbows. He gets nailed in the face a couple times with the gloves, and he starts bleeding.
And he just bursts open, doesn't he?
Yeah, it just pops open. But I think they just kind of let him play it out at this point because they know what it is, But for someone who doesn't have that history and they don't know, and they see that much blood, and a doctor looks at it and says that's a pretty deep cut. They might call it, and that's something you got to watch out for once you start including the elbows and things like that, makes a little bit of a difference. So who's next on your dance card? Do you have anybody scheduled or anything going on?
Nobody just yet. I think we're trying to figure out, whether it's going to be flyweight or strawweight as well. I think it will be flyweight because I've put quite a lot of mass on, through, obviously through COVID. I've been, going to the, lifting weights and properly functional lifting and things like that. So I put on quite a few pounds, but in muscle. So before that, I was quite a small flyweight. I wasn't a huge flyweight. And it was kind of in talks to whether I'd cut, but I really don't want to. I'd rather fight bigger people than cut that much weight. I don't have time to do that. I cut to get to 57. There's no way I'm cutting to get to 52 at this point. I think we'll see how it goes though. I've got a nutritionist who's really good anyway, and obviously I've not really pushed my body that far yet to do a huge cut, but so nobody just yet, but I do definitely want to fight this year. Whether or not that's going to happen, we'll find out. But yeah, we still got quite a few months left, so we'll see. We'll see.
We got a few months. We got a few months to go, and hopefully you get one in because you got one fight in this year, and that was I think against Charlie Burke, right?
Yeah, that's one, yeah.
Yeah, and she looked big compared to you in that fight.
It was a catch weight, that one. Yeah, it was a catch weight because I was supposed to be defending my title on Budo, which is one of the British promotions. Yeah. And so I was obviously had an opponent for that, and I think it got to 12 days or 13 days before the fight, and she pulled out. So I was quite light anyway. And then Charlie was supposed to be fighting somebody else. I don't know whether that was at bantamweight or that was at catchweight. So I just said, right, I'll just, stop my weight cutting that I was doing gradually, and then, fight. I think it was 59 kilo, that one. But you can clearly see the difference in that. But I was weight cutting before that, so that's why I looked.
You were prepping to go down, and that's tough, and you still came out on top of that, so that's amazing. It took a fight like that, and basically in the middle of a cut, decided to reverse course at that point, or had to reverse course, and then
because I really wanted to fight. I'm not, I think a lot of I was going to say a lot of girl fighters, but it's a lot of male fighters as well that get fights booked and kind of buzz off the promotion of it, and then all of a sudden they pull out and they're notorious for pulling out, and then next minute they've got to fight somewhere else, and the person who I was supposed to be fighting was quite notorious for doing that. So I was in the back of my mind, I thought, I'm not going to really prepare to fight this girl because I'm probably not going to. So I just kind of did my own thing, and lo and behold, she did pull out, and then I had to fight somebody else. But I seen that somebody pull. I know Charlie. We had an interclub together, which is the before you go to amateur, you kind of have two rounds with the shin guards on and things like that. So we fought each other before, and it just made sense to save each other's fights pretty much. So that's how that ended up. But yeah, it worked out well.
It did. It worked out very well. I mean, like I said, you're on a 4-win streak. I want to see that continue. I think that's going to be, oh, absolutely. And, please, let me know who your next fight is or when it is. If you could just send me a quick message, I'd be sure to check it out and watch. I want to support you on this. You're turning pro. I want to see how this goes for you. I think you got the right attitude. You certainly have the right work ethic. And it sounds like you're on a good path. So, thank you again for coming on the show today. Is there anything else, anything you want to promote, any website, anything like that you want to put out there?
No, it's all right. I was just gonna let you go if you want to go, and then because I think my battery's like on 2% on my laptop, so I'm kind of thinking.
So we're running out of time.
I thought I better get everything in there before it just completely goes off and it looks like I've run off. So
no, we're good. Don't worry about it. I think we got, usually I do about 30 minutes. Sometimes I push it a little further, and we got almost an hour in. So, it goes quick, doesn't it? It's like, wow, really boom, gone. Yeah. So, I just want to thank you again. Levi Steedman, professional, how does that sound, by the way? Professional MMA fighter, going to have a kick-ass career. And I'm looking forward to watching it and following it. And, we'll talk again. I hope, when you do make it to the UFC, you come back on and talk to me again.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really good. Yeah. So.
And we'll talk before that too. But like I said, I just, when you're a big star out there, don't forget about me. I'm trying to see some of this. But, listen, be good. Take care of yourself. I know you got to go. And, awesome. It's been an awesome conversation. It's going to be a great podcast. I'll let you know when it's up.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
You got it.